Hello, fourth grade. Time for language arts class. It's more about poetry, and today it's about two specific kinds of poetry. Haikus, or I said that wrong. Haikus, and limericks. Interesting types of poetry. Before we get into that though, let's do some review. What is the term for speaking about a thing as if it were a person? What is the term we use referring to something as if it were a person? Personification. What is the term for words that sound like the action they describe? What do we call those words that sound like the action they describe? Onomatopoeia. What is a poem called that does not rhyme? A poem that does not rhyme is called free verse. Good job. I'm going to read a poem, and you see if you can figure out what type of figure of speech is used in this poem. What kind of figure of speech? We've learned about similes, metaphors, and personification between language arts and reading. See if you can pick out what type of figure of speech is used here. What Robin Told. How do robins build their nests? Robin Redbreast told me. First a wisp of yellow hay in a pretty round they lay. Then some shreds of downy floss, feathers too, and bits of moss, woven with a sweet, sweet song. This way, that way, and across. That's what Robin told me. Where do robins hide their nests? Robin Redbreast told me. Up among the leaves so deep, where the sunbeams rarely creep. Long before the winds are cold, long before the leaves are gold, bright-eyed stars will peep and see baby robins. 1, 2, 3. That's what Robin told me. Written by George Cooper. Do you have an answer for what kind of figure of speech? Personification. That's right. Sunbeams rarely creep. Bright-eyed stars will peep and see. All right. That is all for review. Now, let's talk about haikus. What is a haiku? Haiku is a type of poetry that comes from Japan. And it's an old form of poetry. And something really unique about haikus is that haikus are free verse. They don't rhyme. But yet they're still poems because of several things. One is they still use figurative language. They use descriptive words and language that creates pictures in our minds. And the other thing is there's a pattern to the words. If you look at the haiku in the pink box, you'll see that the first line has 5 syllables, the second line has 7 syllables, and the last line has 5 again. So haikus have 3 lines. The first and the last are lines of 5 syllables, and the middle one has 7 syllables. A haiku Haiku is often about nature. I'm going to read this poem in your pink box and see if you can picture the scene that this poem describes. Written by Basho Masuo, and according to my information, Basho Masuo was one of the first poets of the haiku style. Okay, so yeah, see if you can picture this scene with me as I read this poem. An old silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash! Silence again. How many of you have ever walked up to an old silent pond? There was green water plants growing on it. Silent. You didn't think anybody else was around until all of a sudden, splash! Oh, a frog jumped into the pond. And then it's all quiet again. Here is a haiku that I wrote just a couple minutes ago. And what inspired me about this little poem was something that happened yesterday. My dog Coco had a squirrel in a tree, and so I climbed up to take a look. And yeah, some things that stood out to me about the squirrel. The squirrel was up in the tree, and the dog barking underneath, and squirrels don't like to be seen by people, right? Or by things that could harm them. And so this squirrel was perched on top of a limb, trying to make himself as small as he could, his tail stretched straight out behind him, and his feet tucked in as close as he could to his body, and they were tightly gripping the branch. His big eyes were wide open. They were black. And he was there motionless, just trying to disappear. And one thing that's always amusing to me about squirrels is, you know how they flip their tails? Well, he was wanting to disappear, so his tail was stretched straight out behind him, and it was not moving at all. So, put a picture into my mind, and I wrote this haiku about what I saw. A big-eyed squirrel way up, let me start over. A big-eyed squirrel way high up clung motionless, bushy tail so still. All right. I was kind of impressed with myself for writing a poem. Haikus actually aren't that hard to write. Part of your lesson today, part B, gives you a chance to write a haiku. Are you into writing a haiku? I think you should try. It's not as hard as it looks. This is what I'm going to say. If you write a haiku for part B, you won't have to do penmanship tomorrow. So I'm going to make it optional, because I know how it is to be forced to write a poem when you cannot think. But I think you all could think. So I'm going to give you a little bit of motivation. If you write a haiku, you won't have to write your penmanship tomorrow. And then, if you get that finished, text it to me, and then I will read them tomorrow, your haikus tomorrow, if you text them to me before tomorrow morning, or first thing tomorrow morning. So to help you get started with your haiku, beside part B, there's a couple things to get your mind going. You could write about butterfly, snow, tree, cloud, or the sun. And one thing that is helpful is when your haiku starts, maybe the first line, all it has to do is tell what? Like mine does, it tells what? A big-eyed squirrel. So here are some lines that we get started. Beautiful white snow, large red maple tree, tall green cedar. Maybe that's helpful. Maybe you want to come up with your own. But remember, first line is 5 syllables. Beautiful white snow. Second line is 7. Way high up, clung motionless. And the last line is 5 again. Bushy tail so still. Yeah, I think you can do it. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. All right, let's talk about the second part of today's lesson, and that is limericks. Limericks are humorous poems, and they sound more like a poem than haikus because they have rhyming lines. A limerick has a total of 5 lines in the poem, and the first, second, and the 5th line all rhyme, and the 3rd and the 4th rhyme together. So the rhyming pattern would be A, B, B, A. So one thing unique about a limerick, and another thing unique about it is that, like I said, they're humorous poems, and a lot of times they're kind of nonsense. They don't really say a whole lot, just silly. Isn't that weird? But it's because they are humorous and silly. It's why they're fun to read. I'll read this one in your pink box. There was an old man of the D who was sadly annoyed by a flea. When he said, "I will scratch it," they gave him a hatchet, which grieved that old man of the D. Written by Edward Lear. Do you remember the poem titled "There Was an Old Man of West Dumpet" that I read some time ago out of this book? That was a limerick. I'll read it again. And this is also written by Edward Lear. I just noticed that now. Same author. There was an old man of West Dumpet who possessed a large nose like a trumpet. When he blew it aloud, it astonished the crowd and was heard through the whole of West Dumpet. You get what I mean when I say they're kind of nonsensy? All right, well, that's an introduction to limericks. Have fun with them. So party, you have a poem to read and answer a few questions about. So, part E, why don't you read that poem aloud? I think that's the best way to read poems. Read that poem aloud. And on part H, I'll give you a little chance to turn to part H. Part H says, add all punctuation marks where they belong. So, think about what all punctuation includes. It can be commas, it can be quotation marks if there are people talking in the sentence and they're the exact words of the person talking. It could be punctuation at the end of a sentence. So remember what punctuation means, those three things, and be on the lookout for any place you can add those three things. All right, that's all for today, and enjoy working with those haikus and limericks.